In this episode, I want to tell you about the process I went through to build my first list for matched play in Warhammer Age of Sigmar. Hi folks, and welcome back to the channel. So far I've explained how I got into Age of Sigmar and the process I went through to decide on my first army. If you're in the same boat, you're probably sitting there now with a box of grey plastic with no idea on what to do next. Or maybe you've chosen your army but you haven't bought anything yet as you don't know which units are worth buying. If you and your gaming buddies play open play, then you don't have anything to worry about. Just get them bad boys out of the box, get them built up, put some paint on them and start rolling dice. If on the other hand, like me, the group you play with plays matched play, then we need to start looking at points costs and maybe your army composition too. So where do we start? Again, as I mentioned previously, the General's Handbook isn't needed to play Age of Sigmar. However, if you want to play a match player, it's pretty much required. The points costs are only available in the General's Handbook at the moment, so you won't find them on any of the free war scrolls. Some of the models which have been released after the General's Handbook have points cost in their specific battle tomes. As I record this, there's also been news that the Age of Sigmar app is about to be updated any day now, with all of the points costs and all of the battalions unlocked for a monthly subscription of 99p, so this may be of interest for anyone watching a little later down the line. Even in match play there are multiple ways to play. Points only is where you can still field whatever you want with no limits on army composition, but you use the points cost to give some structure around balancing out your lists. Again, this is a great way to play if you like the idea of open play but want to try and balancing out the opposing armies. The other way is called pitch battles. This gives you specific rules linked to building your army list. If you intend on playing competitively, this is where you need to start. One thing to note, that is, if playing using pitched battle rules, then all of the models in your army must be from the same Grand Alliance: Order, Chaos, Death or Destruction. Here it explains all about battalions, battlefield roles and most importantly points costs. So let's break them down one by one and try and clear up any confusion about what all that means. Points cost is pretty self-explanatory. This is how many points of your total army the individual model or unit will cost you. There are three different types of pitched battles to choose from. Vanguard, which is 1000 points and should take about 1.5 hours to play once you're up to speed with the rules. Battle Host, this is 2000 points and should play in about 2 to 2.5 hours. And War Host, which is 2500 points, and you should expect to play in about 3 hours plus for this. Of course you can play at any limit you like. However, these are the points limits for which the General's Handbook gives you compositions, so we'll work with these for explanation purposes. So for example, if you're playing a 1000 point Vanguard game, that means you have 1000 points to spend. Your Khorne Bloodbound Bloodsecrator costs 120 points, that means you have 880 points left to spend. Easy. When it comes to points for units, it's worth going into a little more depth, as this is something that wasn't obvious to me the first time I read the General's Handbook. Each unit has a minimum and a maximum size. So as example, continuing with the Khorne theme, Blood Warriors have a minimum unit size of 5 models and a maximum size of 30 models. You can field multiple units, so if you have 60 Blood Warrior models, you can have 2 units of 30 or you can have 6 units of 10. The General's Handbook shows the points cost for this unit is 100 points. Now this means that each multiple of the minimum unit size, in this example 5, costs you 100 points. Not 100 points for anywhere between 5 and 30 models, and not 100 points per model. To clarify this further, 5 models will cost you 100 points, 10 models will cost you 200 points, and so on up to 30 models costing you 600 points. Also note that you can field any number of models between the minimum and maximum size. So for example, you could field 7 models, however you must pay the points cost for 10 models, as you can only pay the cost in chunks of the minimum size unit. Therefore, to get the best bang for your buck, it's advisable to field your units in multiples of the minimum size. Battlefield role is a term given to state what role that model or unit fulfills in your army roster. There are 4 main roles: Leader, Battle Line, Artillery and Behemoth. Some models have no battlefield role, so this will be left blank and will be classed as other units. The chart in the pitch battle section shows that for each game size there are a minimum and maximum amount of models that you can take for each battlefield role. So for a battle host 2000 point game, you can field between 1 and 6 leaders, a minimum of 3 battle lines, and for artillery and behemoths a maximum of 4 with no minimum. It also mentions other units which you can field any number you like. Some models have multiple roles, such as leader and behemoth. The Frostlord and Thundertusk for my Beastclaw Raiders is an example. In this case, the model would fill 2 slots in your army. It would fill up 1 slot for your leader allowance and 1 slot for your behemoth allowance. Some models or units have specific special battlefield roles when taken as part of an allegiance, or if a certain leader is selected. As an example, Fire Slayers have Heathguard Berserkers that have no battlefield role. However, if you take them as part of a Fire Slayer allegiance and the leader is a Rune Master, you can count them towards your battle line. This can be really important as the battle line role appears to be the hardest to fill, especially when trying to stay inside a specific allegiance. For my Beastclaw Raiders, I have no battle line units available to me. However, if I stay within Beastclaw Raiders allegiance, my Stonehorn and Thundertusk Beast Riders, along with my Mournfang pack, become battle line. On top of this, there are other optional restrictions to build your list known as battalions. Instead of each model or unit being an individual unit that you drop when deploying, you can combine specific models and units into a battalion. These have specific rules that place a large restriction on what models or units you can have in your battalion, but give you bonus abilities for having that restriction. It can also help you as you drop this battalion as a unit at deployment. So this means you may end your deployment first and it's giving you the choice to go first or second. You'll find these restrictions and abilities in the War Scroll battalions, in your battle tomes, or sometimes in the box your models came with. For my Beastclaw Raiders, I have a War Scroll battalion called a Jolbad. This limits me to taking a unit which consists of only 1 Huskard on Stonehorn, 1 to 3 Stonehorn Beast Riders, and 2 to 4 Mournfang packs. It does, however, give me the bonus that all of these units can now run and charge in the same turn, and also re-roll field battle shock tests for friendly Beastclaw Raider models within 12 inches of this Jolbad's Huskard. Just be aware that within pitched battles, the War Scroll battalions also have a point cost, which must be factored into your overall army cost. As an example, this Jolbad would cost me 20 points. This can be really useful, however, if you're under the points limit but don't have enough spare to fit in an extra unit. I know this all sounds really complicated, but once you've read over the pitch battle profiles in the General's Handbook and see these War Scrolls, it'll become much clearer. You can also check out in the description below where I've added a link to a handy online War Scroll builder. So now we know what we can take, what should we take? What are we trying to achieve with our list? Well, a good place to start is with the battle plans. Games Workshop have designed 6 battle plans specifically to be used with the pitched battles format, and these tend to be what are used in tournament play too. The battle plan is really just the scenario for a particular game which will contain info on setup and victory conditions. If you know what the conditions for victory are, you can then pick your army list to give you the best chance of success. As an example, one of the battle plans is called 3 Places of Power. In this plan, you score victory points at the end of each of your turns for each place of power that is controlled by one of your heroes. As there's 3 places of power, it wouldn't make any sense to build your list with only one model having the hero keyword, would it? Now we have all of the information available for us to build a list. We know what the objective of the game is, the battle plan. We know how many points we have to spend on a list, and we know how to construct a list based upon the battlefield roles and the points cost. The only other options to consider now are allegiance abilities and magical artifacts. If all of your units and War Scroll battalions are from the same Grand Alliance, you gain an allegiance ability specific to that alliance, for example Order. This consists of a battle trait, a command trait, and a magical artifact. The battle trait is a bonus that is applied to the entire army. Order, for example, gain Defiant Avengers, which allows them to re-roll battle shock tests for friendly Order units within 12 inches of the General or another hero model. The command trait is a bonus applied to only the General of the army. This is a table of 6 options where you either choose the one you like the look of, or you roll a die and randomly be assigned one. Again, these are bonuses such as add +1 wound to your general. The magical artifact is a bonus which can be given to one hero model in your army. This is also a table of 6 and can either be selected or rolled for. The other option is if all of your units and war scroll battalions are from the same allegiance, you can then alternatively choose from your allegiance abilities, which you'll find in your army's battle tome. Remember, if you qualify for both your alliance and allegiance bonus, you can only choose one, you don't get them both. So, if you're still with me right now, well done. It seems like a lot to take in, but once you've read through it, it's pretty straightforward actually. Believe me, it's definitely a lot harder to explain than it is to do in practice. So for my gaming group Slow Grow campaign, we're at the 500 point mark. We then all get together and play a doubles match at 1,000 points per side. We've decided to use the rules for the 1,000 point Vanguard game and split the battle roll requirements in half. This means in my 500 points list I need 1 or 2 leaders, 1 or more battle lines, up to 1 artillery and up to 1 behemoth. So to try and maximise my model count at this low level, I've selected the following. My leader is an Icebrow Hunter who cost me 160 points. My battle line is a minimum unit Mournfang pack, which is 2 models costing me 200 points. I've then added in a minimum unit of Icefall Yetis, which consists of 3 models and costs me 120 points. In total, this is 480 points. The models I have don't qualify for any of the War Scroll battalions, so I just have to sacrifice those 20 points. Remember, you don't have to spend up to your limit, but you certainly can't go over. At this stage, I don't know who my opponent is or what the battle plan will be, so I've not chosen any abilities yet. So now I'm all set to go. I understand the rules for selecting my army, I've bought some models in my Alliance Battle Tome, and I've picked my first 500 points. All that's left to do now is build and paint them by next Thursday. No problem. Hopefully that's helped clear up any confusion new players may have around building their first lists. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're new here, why not subscribe to join me on my journey into the mortal realms of Age of Sigmar. See you in the next video where I'll be discussing the hobby side of Age of Sigmar and showing you my first 500 points in all their painted glory. Thanks for watching.